What if I told you that a compost pile just 2 feet wide and 2 feet tall can outperform the sprawling, slow piles most gardeners build and forget? That in a matter of days, not weeks or months, you could start turning your kitchen scraps, yard waste, and garden clippings into a steaming, nutrient-dense blend that your plants will devour. Sounds impossible, especially if you've always believed compost needs to be massive, messy, or complicated. But stay with me for the next minute, because what you're about to learn could completely transform how you feed your soil, no matter how small your space is. In my small backyard, there's no room for sprawling compost bins or large tumbler systems. I had to think differently, and what I discovered was that with the right balance, layering, and a few clever tweaks, even a 2x2 compost cube can go thermonuclear in the best way possible. This isn't slow, cold composting, this is hot composting that breaks down materials fast, destroys weed seeds, and creates humus-rich soil food that's ready in weeks, not months. Let's break down how it works, what makes it run hot, and how you can do the same even in a tiny corner of your yard or patio. Why most small compost piles fail, and how this fixes it. The common belief is that compost piles need to be at least 3 by 3 by 3 feet to generate heat, and that's true for traditional passive systems. But in compact gardening setups, we don't always have that kind of space. Most people throw scraps into a tiny bin, hope it breaks down, and are left months later with a smelly, half-rotted mess that's either too wet or too dry. The problem isn't the size, it's the ingredients and how they're layered. A small hot compost pile, like my 2x2 system, works by creating a dense, well-balanced stack of carbon and nitrogen that's layered intentionally to trap heat. It relies on the same microbial biology as larger piles, but in a concentrated form. The trick is to go heavy on the high nitrogen greens like fresh grass clippings, kitchen scraps, and soft green weeds, paired with shredded dry carbon like leaves, straw, paper, or even dry soil. Once stacked and moistened just right, the pile becomes a furnace of microbial activity, reaching internal temps of 130 to 160 degrees Fahrenheit in as little as 3 days. How I built the 2x2 power stack. I start with a simple open-bottom cube made from reclaimed wood pallets or old concrete blocks. You don't need anything fancy, just walls to hold the mass together and allow air to circulate. The base layer is always coarse sticks, dry stems, or half-decomposed mulch to keep the bottom breathable. On top of that, I alternate layers of green and brown. One of the key ingredients I use to kickstart the process is partially chopped kitchen waste blended with water into a slurry. This makes it easier for microbes to access the material and jumpstarts the nitrogen content. I layer this with dry, shredded leaves and crumpled cardboard, always ending with a carbon layer on top to prevent odors and flies. Then I water the pile like a sponge, moist, not soggy. If I grab a handful and squeeze, only a drop or two should come out. I top it with a piece of old carpet or a tarp to insulate and keep in heat and moisture. Within 48 hours, the center is usually too hot to touch. Turning isn't always necessary, but here's when it helps. Most guides will tell you to turn your compost every few days to keep oxygen moving. In my 2x2 system, I usually let it go untouched for the first 5 to 7 days. That's when the microbial frenzy is at its peak, and the internal heat is doing the work of breaking everything down. After the first week, I check the temperature using a compost thermometer, or just by sticking my hand into the center carefully. If it's cooled down, I give it one good turn with a garden fork, flipping the outer layer inward and exposing fresh material to the heat core. That one turn often restarts the heat cycle, getting another 5 to 7 days of active breakdown. Because of the small size, full decomposition happens surprisingly fast. After about 2 to 3 weeks, the material is dark, crumbly, and, honestly, it smells just like rich earth. I let it cure for another week, then I mix it into my garden beds, or use it as a top-dress mulch. So, what makes this method so powerful for raised beds and urban gardens? Well, one of the biggest benefits of a hot compost method in a compact space is just how adaptable it is. Whether you're working in a narrow side yard, a patio, or maybe even an urban backyard, this 2x2 method turns waste into fertility with almost no smell or pests. It's really ideal for raised bed gardeners who want to control exactly what goes into their soil. Since the compost heats up quickly, it destroys seeds from weeds and pathogens that might survive in cold compost. That means there's way less risk of reintroducing garden problems when you spread your finished mix. Even better, the compost made this way actually retains more microbial life and trace nutrients because it never sits dormant for too long. It's fresh, biologically active, and totally ready to feed your soil life, not just your plants. Add-ins that supercharge the process. Let me tell you, sometimes I blend in a scoop of rock dust or clay powder for extra minerals. Dried molasses or even just a splash of sugar water gives the microbes a real feast and, really accelerates the breakdown. And if I really want to inoculate the pile with soil-building life, I just toss in a handful of finished compost or some healthy garden soil from an older bed. These boosters aren't necessary, but, they really turn the pile from good to great. Within just a few days, you'll actually smell the difference. That deep forest floor scent, well, that's how you know the biology is thriving. Final thoughts. The power of going small and hot. Don't let space stop you from building your own compost powerhouse. This 2x2 method proves you don't need a massive pile to get steaming hot, nutrient-rich compost fast. With the right layering, moisture, and a little occasional turning, even a tiny setup can feed a full garden season, and it fits neatly in a corner. If you're tired of slow piles, cold compost, or store-bought bags that never quite deliver, hey, give this hot cube method a shot. It's low cost, low effort, and high reward. Just 2 feet wide and 2 feet high, but it really packs a punch. If this guide inspired you to rethink composting in your small space, help us spread the word. Subscribe to Hydrohaven, share this video with fellow growers, and keep turning waste into wealth, one hot little pile at a time.